One is a gritty tale of drugs, gambling, alcohol, and loss. The other is, you remember that one Oprah interview with Tom Cruise where he was going kind of crazy? Imagine that, but he also played pool. The Hustler. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And we're back. Back to recording after what feels like 3 years for me.
Oh, I've been busy, eh?
Yeah. We apologize for slightly modified, scheduling. I was in the process of both moving myself and my girlfriend, who is, working long distance at the moment. And then all at once my work decided, hey, that concept of free time you've been having? You're just not gonna, do that for a little while, okay?
Is that good? Does this sound all right?
Yeah. Stay up all night if yes. Which is, what happened.
Yeah, not the best situation to be in. I mean, honestly, your boss or your manager or whoever should probably try to mitigate that more somehow.
The problem with it ultimately is, we don't really have control over that with our projects. We have a few bigger clients, and they send stuff our way to do, and so we kind of wait on their timetable. And we had done a bunch of, preliminary work on a couple of projects earlier in the summer, and they all were basically sent back to us at once, being like, okay, let's go for the full project now. And they sent, 3 or 4 of them. So we don't have a whole lot of control. That being said, they need to hire more people, and people who actually know the programs we're using. That'd be nice.
Ooh,
if there's enough time in the day. What about you? Your month been any better? You can't imagine.
No, unfortunately, not really. Lots of problems at work, unfortunate passings in the family, so the month has been
sorry about that.
Very hectic as well. It's all right. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, we feel our mortality today, folks. Fucking welcome to it, and what great movies to pick from for it. But we'll get to that.
And I feel remiss because we usually do the forecast up front, and we didn't do it. We simultaneously. I don't know about you. You don't live too far away from me, but we got hit by both a huge heat wave and massive thunderstorms, so it's just been very gross and sticky outside.
Yep, and guess what 2 things I had to deal with when moving? Both extreme heat waves and thunderstorms. Oh my God, the world has it out for me.
It's a true power couple. Yeah, they're trying to squash it, but I won't be squashed so easily. I got a 4-day weekend coming up, and I plan on enjoying it.
Hell yeah. I have no idea if I get an extra day off or not. I'm going to need to ask about that.
Oh yeah, definitely find that out.
Oh gosh. I might just stay home on Monday anyway and be like, I'm observing it myself. Go away. But have you had time for movies in our time off?
Yeah, I've done some movies and some games. I guess I can just go into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Sonic's 35th anniversary was this month. Or 30th. It's his 30th.
Yeah, just 30th.
Zelda's 35th, which I was looking at stuff earlier. But yes, it's his 30th. So I went through and completed some Sonic games over the past couple weeks that I had never really Well, some I had touched as a kid, but I hadn't really beaten or completed any of them before.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Sonic Spinball, Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Sonic R on the Sega Saturn,
Mm-hmm.
and Sonic Colors, which I've heard a lot of mixed things about. The gameplay is pretty alright. The story is like dog shit with baby humor. It feels like it was written for toddlers, and that's not an insult because it seems fine for toddlers, but if you like watch the cutscenes on YouTube, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
At least this is a Sonic game where that feels intentional.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a Wii only title. I mean, I played it on the Wii, and it utilizes the motion controls, so I think it was definitely aiming for a younger demographic.
Mm.
But I mean, the
Which,
game
like, I feel
is
like
fine.
Yeah, I feel like Sonic really kind of needs to lean into that just a little bit more. Like, at least when they do the full 3D shit with all the weird characters.
They
Like,
go too far into the edgy stuff with like Adventure and Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog and Unleashed, and
especially Unleashed for some reason.
yeah, and that really is sort of because his roots in the 90s were baked in this sort of sassy attitude man who disrespects authority, you know, like a real Bart Simpson type, but they took it too far, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... Oh, God. DeviantArt will never be the same.
No. It's not good.
If you don't get that reference, don't Google it, please. Please spare yourself the horror that our generation has wrought.
Just the well-known game of searching your name the Hedgehog on Google Images, which I do every couple of months just in case a new one has popped up, and sometimes a new one has popped up.
See, I've done that exactly once, and I was just like, it wasn't like I didn't find like a bad result or anything, but I just having just done that in the first place, I'm like, I feel wrong.
I got cheated because the first time I did it literally the only one that popped up, which is surprising because my name is so common, was just a Sonic recolor. He was green, and there wasn't even any like text about his background. I was like, okay.
I mean, we can't all have the, you know, multi-hundred fanfic series written about us.
The assassin hedgehog character with wings that beat Sonic in a race one time, and Sonic was like, "You truly are the fastest thing alive." Yeah,
has a crossover with Fallout Equestria.
Oh God. Well,
again, don't Google that one, folks. You'll thank me.
Thankfully, I don't have
to. Is that thankfully or?
But that's Sonic.
Yes.
Sonic aside.
For all it is and isn't.
And besides that, on the game front, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey when I have the time. I don't have much to comment on it. I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm not even like 6 hours in yet. I haven't had much time to play it, but...
Oh yeah, there's way more.
Oh, I know how these newer Assassin's Creed games are. But
Odyssey especially, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Which I was fine with. I can't remember if I ever mentioned on the show, but I did play through it relatively recently. And I think the only reason, like, in the end, the gameplay got pretty stale, but I think the only reason I really kept with it is because I just am such a little fanboy for ancient Greece. So I was just like, okay, well, it's a little bit clunky combat, but it's clunky combat in Athens. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it so far. I like some of the things that they're doing with it. I don't know what has carried over from some of the other newer ones like Origins and Unity and whatever, because I haven't played most of the newer titles, and I think Valhalla is the newest one.
From what I understand, they pretty much just completely shook up the formula with Origins, but I never played it, so...
Like, I like the mercenary system. It's like a much more simplified version of what they were sort of doing in those Mordor games. You know, it's not as complicated as that, but
yeah,
that's pretty cool. So yeah, hopefully I get further into that and I can give truer thoughts next time. Besides that, I have watched a couple of things. So the first thing I actually watched Pan's Labyrinth for the first time.
Oh,
Um,
I've wanted to see that for a while, actually.
it's one of those things where it's been on my list of things to see, which there's a ton of movies that everyone knows and talks about I haven't seen, but the list of ones that I actively am like I need to see that is like maybe 10.
Hmm.
And that was one of them, and I finally just did it because I think it was on Netflix, and I was like, oh, so I can just watch it. Okay.
Oh shit! I mean, if it's on a streaming service, I might just watch it tonight once we're done.
It might have been Netflix. Maybe it was HBO Max. Let me check. Yeah, it's on Netflix. So
It's fucking sick.
I did
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna watch that. Like, if I don't, pass out.
Yeah. And I really like that. I like the theme it was going for. I did not expect the mystical stuff to be so non-pre. I thought it was going to be a bigger presence in the movie. But most of it is like wartime shenanigans, and I was
Yeah, that's what I've
not
heard.
expecting that. Um,
That I mean, I'm kind of into. I mean, me being the history nerd that I am, I'm actually more interested with the fact that it's more just kind of like in this like sprinkled throughout rather than like more like Hellboy level.
right. Yeah, no, I get that. I guess it's yeah, that's weird a bit. I wish that honestly for the war part, I wish more of it was focused on like this rebel faction or whatever that is hiding out like this guerrilla force in the woods. But
Hmm.
there's not a lot of focus on that. It's mainly on the captain, who is basically the stepfather, I guess, of the main character, and just how big of a prick he is. I was like, I don't like this character. I like what they do with him, obviously. It's well written, and you're meant to hate him. But also, then scenes with him, I'm just like, can we go to like the Seder,
Yeah,
please, or the Fawn? Like, I'm
yeah.
sick of watching this guy. Um, but yeah, so I watched that. I liked it.
Sick.
And the other thing that I watched was House. Uh,
What?
the show with Hugh Laurie. No,
Oh, I
so
genuinely thought that's what you meant.
no, no,
I was like, I would never in a million years have expected you to watch that.
no. So there. This is strange because there are multiple films with the title House because it's a fairly generic title. But the one that I watched is a 1977 Japanese comedy horror movie, which I
Oh,
liked.
Japan.
I loved House. It was great. It's bizarre and crazy, and just like things fly. How do I even explain it? Like,
I mean, you don't need to. I imagine that's much of the point.
yeah, it's basically bunch of girls go to this house to visit one of the main character's aunt, like her widowed aunt or whatever. Or I guess she wasn't widowed, her lover just left her and never came back, but it, the house starts like eating them to absorb them, and like there's crazy colors and drawings on the screen and like things that turn into blood and close up on things that don't make sense until I look them up on Wikipedia for what they were. Like there's this one where one of the girls looks. I probably sound like a psycho describing this, but
I
there's
mean, like, as opposed to me, whenever I talk about literally anything I'm interested in.
there's one scene where one of the main characters looks at a clock, and it's a close up on her face, and she's like, "Oh, like I understand." And then it cuts to the clock, and the gears are turning, and just like there's blood drawn on the screen between the cracks of the gear, and then they move on. And I was like, well, what was that? And I looked it up on the internet, and is like, oh, one of the girls' bodies was being like fed through the grandfather clock. I was like, well, did I miss something? I didn't really see that happen, but
Yeah,
okay, I guess
very.
someone figured it out.
This isn't so much show don't tell as much as vaguely imply don't tell.
Oh, a man for no reason turns into a pile of bananas. Like it's
You know what?
crazy, and I love it.
You know, when you described it as Japanese comedy horror, honestly, that's one of the more predictable things.
Is it?
I mean, like I just kind of assumed Japan takes non sequitur humor to like a whole other another fucking planet.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I thought you meant specifically the Banana Man, and I was like, I don't remember ever seeing that before. But no, I know
mean,
what
like,
you mean.
I've never seen it before, but at the same time, that seems exactly right. As if I should have seen that before. So, but you know,
yeah,
sounds
no,
interesting. That's for sure.
I liked it. I didn't know it was a comedy horror film going in. I thought it was a straight horror movie, and since it was Japanese and it was from a different culture, I figured that I would find some comedy in it just because cultural misunderstandings or whatever. But
Right.
it wasn't until like 20 minutes in that I realized, because one of the characters has a flashback and the other girls are commenting on things that they are seeing in the flashback as if they can see it. I was like, oh, this is like supposed to be comedic. It took a while to sink in.
Yeah, I have a I don't have that problem with movies, but I do have it with books where if I'm not told like the tone of the book, I will just usually assume it's serious. And so like I read through half of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy thinking it was meant to be completely dead serious.
Oh no.
Which like ultimately means it's just a weird book, but I figured it was just like, okay, it's like earlier sci-fi, it's going to come off as kind of weird no matter what. Like, reading Dune, it's like, okay, this feels, not quaint by today's standards, but like very non-cliche.
Yeah. Isn't like the opening line in Hitchhiker's Guide though something along the lines of like, humanity gained sentience and everyone agreed that it was a bad move on the part of the universe or something like that.
I mean, I figured it was just something like, some sardonic wit or whatever. Like, it was more just like, someone being kind of miffed about it more than like, genuine levity.
Okay.
Rather than like British humor, which I think when I first read it, I didn't get British humor all that much yet. So,
okay, you know what? I can see that.
Like I was a kid and dumb. Like it doesn't need a huge explanation.
No, that makes sense to me. But that's House.
Cool.
House starring Hugh Laurie. I liked it. I recommend.
Cool.
We haven't talked about him since The Borrowers, so it was a long time coming.
Hope he's doing okay.
I hope he's all right. Let him shed that cane. So how about you? I know things have been very chaotic over there, but
yeah, I've watched a fair amount, honestly.
Oh wow, more than last time, which
I mean, like probably about the same as last time, maybe a bit more broad. Mainly we had. See, of course, it's been so long now, and I'm so confused with everything. I hadn't talked about wrapping up the rest of the Marvel movies, did I? Because Hannah and I finished that.
Oh, maybe you offhand mentioned it. I don't recall that though.
I don't think so because it would have been more mid-month when we had done that when we had finished. So yeah, I don't think I did. But yeah, no, we finished up the last of the Marvel movies.
Okay. How'd you like Infinity War and all that?
I don't like it. Infinity War and Endgame, I genuinely am not a fan. Like, it has some cool action scenes, but otherwise, it really is just kind of like, all the chickens come home to roost kind of situation where it's just all these different characters who have had so many different writers and directors around them. It just feels like a fucking mess. And any kind of emotional beats they try to take really just fall flat with me. So I was like, okay, so we're done then?
Moving on.
Yeah, just like, Thanos being the very Mary Sue villain, which is to say he is completely and utterly invincible until the writers decide he isn't. That's basically it.
I thought you were saying that whoever wrote the movie was like, you know what? This Thanos guy, he's just like me.
I mean, it's just like, but that even then, like they even try to make it seem like, oh, he has this like genuine side to him. It's like, no, his entire deal makes no fucking sense, and he's crazy, and a psychopath, and a sociopath. Like, why are we having touching scenes of him farming? Like, what is going on? It's just it's such a fucking hot mess of a movie, both Infinity War and Endgame. I'm glad to have done it. I'm glad to have seen it, especially with Hannah. I finally got to see Captain Marvel, which I thought that one was really good. A little disjointed at times, but still better than most.
Is that the one that everybody hates?
I mean, it's a lot of that shit I think people hate because, like, I don't know, like
I have not seen it, so I'm just at.
I know it caused a lot of controversy because of like fucking dude bros and like nice guys being like, oh, woman like character or that isn't sex object or whatever the hell. Like I know that caused a lot of shit.
Oh, okay. But maybe that was it.
Beyond that, I mean, like I think a lot of people seem to enjoy it pretty well, if only because it's actually pretty different formula and actual good character development.
Okay.
But. Yeah, no, I think that one was, up there for my favorites of it. But, yeah, I'm glad to have finished them off. I will probably not watch almost any of them ever again. And that's fine.
Now, that being said, are you and Hannah going to keep up with it? Like, you've seen that Disney Marvel chart the same as me. Are you going to be watching them as they come out?
I might see things like maybe Shang-Chi merely because... we're actually going to get a movie that's actually got the Mandarin, which I know that was an earlier Iron Man villain in the comics, and they kind of did a fake out in Iron Man 3, but now it's like actually the Mandarin as the main villain. So that one I'm kind of excited for just because it's doing something kind of different, and it's also just, a different style of movie. But beyond that, I don't really care. Like I'll probably watch the shows because I honestly think like I do love we've come back around to having TV shows of like superheroes and stuff like we had back in the day. I think this is a better form for them because I really do think just this whole universe really just needs the time to kind of like less trying to have big dramatic moments over the course of several hours and more subtler and like more slow moments over the course of several weeks. Or even just like the actions and not as just like constant over the top and really bad writing constantly on display. So that I'll keep up with the TV shows, but beyond that, maybe one or two of the newer movies if they seem vaguely interesting. That's about it.
Okay.
But beyond that, did watch a couple other things. One thing I actually watched when my dad came down to help me move. We started watching. It was it's actually a French TV show. It's called Lupin.
Yes.
Have you heard of it?
I have heard about it extensively. Have not watched it. But...
Wow. Yeah, no, it's really good. Like I don't know whether or not I'm pretty sure it's the whole thing of it is it's a real fictional book called Lupin. It's about like this gentleman thief. I think it's French, or it must be at least. And, it's framed around this guy who's basically framed his entire personality. Well, not necessarily his personality, but he's fashioned himself to be this, like, modern gentleman spy in, France. And it is cool as hell. Like, it's yeah, like, there's something about French TV making. They know how to fucking do it. And it does, and, like, it's over the top, and it's meant to be, like, those gentleman thief like shows of like back in the day where it's like somehow a Victorian era thief can operate in an era of modern surveillance. So it's like it's breaking all kinds of suspensions of disbelief, but it's kind of the point. you're not really meant to take it too seriously, and so which I'm totally fine with. I love it. I absolutely adore it. My dad showed it to me. We've watched the first 3 episodes, I believe now. I think there's multiple seasons at this point, like 10 per or something like that. You know, the typical.
Yeah, I should sort of give that a watch probably.
Yeah,
because
it's on Netflix.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
even more
that's where
accessible. The only reason I'm really aware of it, I went out of my way to learn about it, is because I heard about it offhand, and it turns out there's other bits of media that are based on those books, but I wasn't aware of them. The main reason I know of it is because one of the most famous manga and anime series, Lupin III, is like his grandson.
Yeah.
It's based around the grandson of the character in the books. So.
Gotcha. Cool. Oh, that's why it's called Lupin the Third. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, just so I don't prattle on for too long. Watched one other thing, and that was Luca, the Pixar movie that came out on Disney+.
Oh, I've been meaning to watch that too.
Yep, I watched that with Hannah before she headed off, and it's a good one. I liked it. I don't think it's as, like, it's not as high level as a lot of Pixar's other stuff. It's pretty restrained in, like, kind of its scope, but I think it's still nice. And it's like it's a story about, jovial goings on in this little Italian coastal town. It's like, it's gorgeous, it's pretty, there's pasta, there's a father figure who I adore with every inch of my heart.
There's pasta.
Oh yeah, I mean, duh. that's a selling point for me.
I was about to say, I just love the idea of that as a selling point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I liked it plenty. I imagine it might be pretty well forgotten compared to a lot of Pixar stuff, but it's like I said, it didn't seem like they were trying to do anything massive with it. So, it's a fun time.
Well, fun time is pretty much the best we can hope for, probably. I mean, because the last couple of movies they've put out have been pretty mediocre. I guess Soul was okay, but part of that is just because the trailer made it look way worse than it was. So
yeah, no. Yeah, I worry about how much control Disney itself has had over Pixar now.
Mm-hmm.
And just just how much control Disney has had in general. I don't need to restrict that to Pixar.
Disney in general, ever since they got control of Fox, they've been putting out all these Maggie Simpson shorts, on Disney Plus. And they're all just like whatever nonsense, not funny. The latest one was like a Star Wars one where Maggie's at a Star Wars themed daycare and they just do all the predictable Star Wars jokes you could think of. But the reason I bring this up is because they had like a poster on their Twitter today for an upcoming Simpsons short on Disney Plus called The Good, the Bart, and the Loki. And it's like an Avengers poster, but all the Avengers are Simpsons characters. I'm like, Jesus, I am so done. I'm so done.
I just
I'm tired.
This thing that I think a lot of people have been pointing out, that we've gotten to that stage of capitalism where every fast food restaurant has their own chicken sandwich and everything. This kind of feels the same, where everything is crossing over with everything, and so everything's the same mediocre slop. It's like, God, I miss quality.
Yeah, it's just like Disney's like, yeah, you can do your own little thing, but make the real thing you should be doing with your time is making a commercial for our thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm depressed. Let's talk about a movie about drinking, gambling, and suicide.
Something slightly more upbeat.
Yeah. This is The Hustler. Kicking off with the 1961 The Hustler, directed by Robert Rosen, screenplay by Robert Rosen and Sidney Carroll, and based on the book The Hustler by Walter Tevis. Also, once again, this time around, for the sake of my voice and my energy levels and the ability to read a list of names without stumbling over myself like I'm drunk, I will be talking about the cast first and then going right into the synopsis. So, we'll be kicking off with the 1961 The Hustler, directed by Robert Rosen, screenplay by Robert Rosen and Sidney Carroll, and it's based on a book by the same name by Walter Tevis. And its cast is Paul Newman, starring as Eddie Felson, Jackie Gleason as Minnesota Flats, which is a fantastic name, Piper Laurie as Sarah Packard, George C. Scott as Bert Gordon, which is, again, fantastic name. And I will go and also include Michael Constantine. Michael Constantine as Big John, and then Myron McCormick as Charlie, the kind of confidant to Eddie Felson, I believe. So, kicking off right into the synopsis. Small-time pool hustler, Fast Eddie Felson, which is still not a great nickname, but whatever, travels cross-country with his partner Charlie to challenge legendary pool player Minnesota Flats. Arriving at Fats' home pool hall, Eddie declares he will win $10,000 that night. Fats arrives and he and Eddie agree to play straight pool for $200 a game. After initially falling behind, Eddie surges back to being $1,000 ahead and suggests raising the bet to $1,000 a game. Fats agrees. He sends out a runner, Preacher, to Johnny's bar, ostensibly for whiskey, but really to get professional gambler Bert Gordon to the hall. Eddie gets ahead by another $11,000, and Charlie tries to convince him to quit. But Eddie insists that the game will only end when Fats says it's over. Fats agrees to continue after Bert labels Eddie a loser. After 25 hours and an entire bottle of bourbon, Eddie is ahead by over $18,000, but loses it all along with all but $200 of his original stake. At their hotel later, Eddie leaves half the remaining stake with a sleeping Charlie and leaves. Eddie goes to stash his belongings at a local bus terminal where he meets Sarah Packard, an alcoholic who is supported by her father, attends college part-time, and walks with a limp, which is a lot of really specific character details. He meets her again at a nearby bar. They go back to her place, but she hesitates at letting him in, saying he is too hungry, which is to say, kind of rapey. She asks, "Why me?" and he eventually gives up, leaving her with the bottle of alcohol that he had bought. Eddie moves into a rooming house and starts hustling for smaller stakes on the side. He finds Sarah again, and this time she takes him in, but with reservations. After a period of time living together, Charlie finds Eddie at Sarah's house and tries to persuade him to go back out on the road. Eddie refuses, and Charlie realizes he plans to challenge Eddie, Minnesota Flats again. Eddie realizes that Charlie held out his percentage of the winnings and becomes enraged, believing that with that money he could have been rebounded to beat Fats. Eddie dismisses Charlie as a scared old man and tells him to, quote, go lie down and die, unquote, by himself. Later at Johnny's bar, Eddie joins a poker game where Bert is playing and loses $20. Afterwards, Bert tells Eddie that he has a talent as a pool player but has no real character. He figures that Eddie will need at least $3,000 to challenge Fats again. Bert calls him a, quote, born loser, unquote, but nevertheless offers to stake him in return for 75% of his winnings. Eddie refuses. Eddie then goes on to humiliate a local pool shark, exposing himself as a hustler, and the other players punish him by breaking his thumbs. As he heals, Sarah cares for him and tells him she loves him, but he cannot say it in return. When Eddie is ready to play again, he agrees to Bert's terms, deciding that 25% slice of something is better than 100% slice of nothing. Bert, Eddie, and Sarah travel to the Kentucky Derby, where Bert arranges a match for Eddie against a wealthy local socialite named Findley. The game turns out to be 3-cushion billiards, not pool. When Eddie loses badly, Bert refuses to keep staking him. Sarah pleads with Eddie to leave with her, saying that the world he is living in and its inhabitants are, quote, perverted, twisted, and crippled, unquote. He refuses. Seeing Eddie's anger, Bert agrees to let the match continue at $1,000 a game. Eddie comes back to win $12,000. He collects his $3,000 share and decides to walk back to his hotel. Bert, however, arrives first and subjects Sarah to a humiliating sexual encounter. Afterwards, she scrawls perverted, twisted, and crippled in lipstick on the bathroom mirror. Eddie arrives back at the hotel to learn that she has killed herself. Eddie returns to challenge Fats again, putting up his entire $3,000 stake on a single game. He wins game after game, beating Fats so badly that Fats is forced to quit. Bert demands a share of Eddie's winnings and threatens that Eddie will be injured unless he pays. But Eddie says that if he is not killed, he will kill Bert whenever he recovers. Invoking the memory of Sarah, he shames Bert into giving up his claim. Instead, Bert orders Eddie never to walk up into a big-time pool hall again. Eddie and Fats compliment each other as players, and Eddie walks out. Now, jumping right along to the long-overdue sequel, The Color of Money, which is, as it stands, a direct sequel both for the film, but also in the book form by the same name, also by Walter Tevis. It is directed by Martin Scorsese, and screenplay is by Richard Price. Its cast is made up of Paul Newman, once again as Fast Eddie Felson, Tom Cruise as Vincent Loria, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as Carmen, and Helen Shaver as Janelle. And there's a few other guys kind of sprinkled here and there, including Forrest Whitaker, which I didn't expect. And John Turturro. Was that one? That one was like, whoa, dude, what are you doing here?
And he shows up so early. I was like, oh my god.
It's like, wow. Hey, dude. I'm glad you're in a better movie than the Transformers movies in a few years. So, moving right along into the synopsis. Fast Eddie Felson is a former pool hustler turned successful liquor salesman in Chicago. He still stakes bets for players, including fellow hustler Julian, who is outmatched at 9-ball, a form what most would be considered, more modern pool, by the young charismatic Vincent Loria. Recognizing Vincent's skill and his girlfriend Carmen's inexperience at luring players to lose money, Eddie tells the couple of their excellent potential for hustling. Carmen visits Eddie alone to inquire about his interest in Vincent. Finding him working at Child World, a sort of like Toys R Us, copycat, Eddie invites Vincent to leave the next day for 6 weeks of hustling out on the road, culminating in a 9-ball tournament in Atlantic City. Manipulating Vincent's insecurities about Carmen and giving him a valuable Balabushka cue stick, which is an actual real thing I didn't know, Eddie persuades him to accept his offer. Eddie's abrupt departure upsets Julian, as well as Eddie's girlfriend, Janelle. Vincent and Carmen hit the road with Eddie in his Cadillac, visiting a series of pool halls. Serving as Vincent's stake horse, Eddie attempts to teach him the art of hustling, but Vincent chafes at having to play below his abilities. At a pool hall run by his old acquaintance Orvis, Eddie becomes fed up with Vincent's arrogance and leaves him behind. Rebuking Carmen for her advances towards him, Eddie reminds her that they are partners with a mutual business interest in Vincent. Eddie returns to find Vincent grandstanding to Werewolves of London, beating the pool hall's best player, but scaring off a much wealthier Mark. Eddie and Vincent talk frankly, agreeing Vincent must curb his ego if they're ever going to succeed. Eddie and Carmen struggle to rein in Vincent's showboating and his jealousy when they pose as lovers during another scam. After a string of successful games, Vincent plays the famed Grady Seasons, supposedly the most successful money pool player currently playing. But he is directed by Eddie to intentionally lose the game, to inflate the odds against Vincent in Atlantic City. Goaded on by Grady, Vincent almost fails to throw the game, and Eddie is soon after watching the game inspired to play pool all over again for himself, having left it behind so many years. After some success, Eddie is then taken by a pool shark named Amos, who was the Forrest Whitaker character. I can't remember if I mentioned his name. Humiliated, Eddie then leaves Vincent and Carmen with enough money to make it to Atlantic City, himself taking the Balabushka cue stick with him. Eddie goes on to refine his skills back at Orvis's pool hall, gets into shape by swimming laps, and gets a pair of corrective lens sunglasses, which make him look very very 70s, which I don't think I ever mentioned the year before. Oh, sorry, 80s. This is 1986. On a winning streak, he enters the Atlantic City tournament and runs into Vincent and Carmen, overhearing them arrange a bet with another player. Eddie, winning against Julian, and Vincent, beating Grady, are set up to face against each other. Janelle arrives to support Eddie, who triumphs against Vincent. As Eddie and Janelle celebrate, Vincent and Carmen surprise Eddie with $8,000, his supposed cut of Vincent's winnings from intentionally losing their match. In his semi-final match, Eddie sees his reflection in the 2-ball. Disgruntled, he forfeits the game and returns Vincent's money. With plans to live with Janelle and determined to win legitimately, Eddie faces Vincent in a private match, declaring, "I'm back." Which is so appropriate, but, not really making a lot of sense considering this was the end of the movie and there were no subsequent sequels.
I was about to say, and that's it.
That's it.
I guess I feel good.
But... And he's gone. Rest in peace, Mr. Newman. He's dead, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, in 2009 or something.
Okay, cool.
That was over a decade ago.
Yes, making sure.
Oh. Well, thank you for the lovely synopsis.
You're welcome. That was 10 times more intelligible than the people actually talking in the movies. My God. But we'll get to that.
We'll discuss. First, I'll do my full circle. All right, so we have 6 this time around, split right down the middle between the 2 movies. So first we have Carolyn Coates, who was a waitress in 1961's The Hustler, and she was a customer of Twin Oaks in 1981's The Postman Always Rings Twice. Just some background stuff, Piper Laurie plays Sarah Packard in 61's The Hustler, and she was Auntie M in 85's Return to Oz.
Huh. Did not expect that one.
I didn't either. I don't remember the last time we actually discussed Return to Oz, so...
I barely remember Return to Oz in general. But then again, that might be the stroke.
I think about it every day. Oh, God.
I'm sorry. That's not cool to say.
And finally for The Hustler, Vincent Gardenia, of all people, showed up. He was just a no-name bartender in The Hustler. And of course, he was Mr. Mushnick in Little Shop of Horrors, 1986. I actually had to go back and find that because I was like, whoa.
Wow. I don't even remember that one.
He's been in things.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to The Color of Money, Bill Cobbs played Orvis, and he was just a generic grandfather in 2011's The Muppets.
Okay.
Bruce A. Young plays Marcel in The Color of Money, and he played Dominic in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane 1991, the TV movie.
Cool.
And finally... Oh, shit. Finally, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Mastrantonio?
Yep. Yeah, I guess so.
Was Carmen in The Color of Money, and she was Gina Montana in 83's Scarface. Oh, Tony's sister.
Oh, the sister.
Yep.
God, I knew I recognized her. Son of a bitch. That's where it was. God, it's been so long.
Oh, and so that is everything for Full Circle, anyways.
Fantastic.
Yes.
My throat is horribly dry, so if you have any in the initial things, I'm going to take a sip. Hopefully it won't be too shocking so I don't spit take over my desk.
So, yes. So for the first time in the history of this show, I am going to immediately start talking about something that ultimately is probably inconsequential to most of what we're going to be talking about. But the soundtracks of these movies is the first thing that stood out to me on watching.
In what regard?
So, The Hustler has this really jazzy, sort of moody soundtrack to fit the locale of the various pool halls, in the time period that it's set in.
Yep.
And it's really fitting just with the overall theme. And the Color of Money soundtrack, it was just sort of grating. The songs were fine, but it was so... I felt like I was paying attention to the songs that were playing more often than what was actually going on, because it didn't really fit the feeling of the movie itself. It was just like, oh, this seems like the soundtrack of a movie from the 80s.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into, I guess, a more broader point that I'll have later on, but it's like, there's a feeling to this movie, because I could not land on one. Like, my God, this movie goes a lot of directions.
I guess if you want to, this is going to sound really stupid too, but I guess if you're going to try to land on a mood, and these are so broad, it's either the feeling of an 80s movie or the feeling of a Tom Cruise movie, and there is some overlap there, but
yeah. This is a very unique situation, which I should go and say. Seeing a very young Tom Cruise is still weird. Like, this is like prior to like even a few good men and like Top Gun. Like, he is shockingly young. Well, this might have been maybe. No, I think this was before both of those, because like just looking at his face, it's like this is a child on screen right now. This is not the weird Scientology, always doing his own stunts maniac that we've come to know and love.
So I know for a fact this movie came out a couple years after Risky Business.
Yeah.
But I had to look it up, and Top Gun actually came out the same year, 86.
Whoa.
So
I guess like once you put someone in, I think once you put someone in military garb, they age up like a good 5 years.
Yeah, and some aviators or whatever. So
he also does, very distinctly act like a lunatic in this movie, so I guess that doesn't help.
He does. He's kind of all over the place. It's
and like again,
it paints a very manic picture, like someone who his mood is constantly switching, and he may not even be aware of it, which may be giving a lot more credit to the character than is actually due, because it's probably just Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise.
And I think this is just like, this is one of the rare occasions of seeing Tom Cruise in a supporting role rather than like the lead role, which I know that there's an argument to be made there that he is the lead, but I still think it's Paul Newman.
I would argue Tom Cruise is the lead character if it wasn't for the last 15 to 20 minutes, I guess.
Right. Which to be fair,
more so hit on that.
Right. Which, to be fair, apparently Paul Newman won the Academy Award for Best Actor for this one rather than Best Supporting. So
he did.
But yeah, like, this is one of the rare occasions of seeing Tom Cruise in a supporting, and like even tangentially supporting. And I think there's a reason why he's usually the lead in his movies, because he does weird shit when he's in supporting roles. Like, another one that comes to mind is, how many people remember this one, Tropic Thunder, where like he plays like this like producer guy, and he like, I don't know whether he deliberately put on weight for it and everything, but he's like got the full on like put on a ton of weight, like the comb over haircut, and it's like this super vulgar New Jersey looking dude, and it's like, and he's fucking crazy in it, and I adore it. I adore that role more than anything else in any of his other movies, because it's like, what if he just decided fuck it, and I thought that's what I was kind of gonna see in this one, and then it just kind of got grating, and so I was just like, ow, well, all right.
Yeah, the weird part about, just generally speaking, having a movie with actors in it playing people who are acting is that sometimes I can't really tell if they're being serious or not. Like, a lot of times when they're pulling their scams or their hustles or whatever, I guess hustles would fit with the original title. Well, yeah. It's pretty obvious that, they're playing a part, but then sometimes they like play parts with each other, and I don't know. It's like the movie wants me to feel a certain way to relate specifically to Paul Newman's character, but in the reality of the world, it's all an act. And so sometimes I'm sort of confused on what the mood, like the mood or the tone that the movie's going for. It's like, well, this was a super serious moment, but I guess it's not really supposed to be. You know what I mean? And that happens a few times.
I kind of got that like a little bit in the original Hustler too, but to obviously a much lesser degree. But the shorthand I ended up coming up with was, if they're doing anything other than being horribly abusive to each other, then it's probably an act. Because like in both of these movies, these people are shitty to each other. My God.
These are all horrible people that you do not want to be. I think the only decent character maybe across all the films is maybe Jackie Gleason's character as Minnesota Fats. Like technically he's not really hustling because he knows he's the best, and he plays for the money and he recognizes good game. I don't think he ever does anything really shitty.
Yeah, like he's a respectable guy. It's just he's sure of himself, but that's not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
We're meant to imply that it's bad because we're following, Newman's character, but Newman's character is also, a flop who is willing to play pool for 25 straight hours to somehow prove some kind of point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it really just, at a certain point, like, I should say, I did still think Newman in The Hustler was fantastic. Like, I couldn't look away from, like, whenever he was doing stuff. And I think I might just also just be a big Paul Newman fan.
Oh, no, yeah. As a performance, like, it's good.
Like, I was, like, incredibly compelled by this dude's, like, near suicidal charge. But yeah, just, like, as far as, like, the character, like, the quality of their character, maybe, like, the only other one I can think of is, like, whoever like the big guy was at Chalky's, the guy in the like cowboy hat and like the nose ring and stuff.
Oh,
he seemed pretty. Yeah, he was pretty legit. See, whenever it's just people like just have it like enjoying a game for the sake of it, like okay, they're cool. But sure. Most of the people we're following aren't doing that. Not least of which is Carmen, because holy shit, I did not expect her to be such a not scumbag, but like God.
No, she's in on it. She's full into it.
Right. Like I think she's more into it than anyone else. Like my God, which like I guess like that's not an underseen trope, especially in 80s movies of like, oh, the girl is actually the corrupting influence rather than the guy. So it's like, oh, turning, societal norms on their heads or whatever the fuck. Who gives a shit? It's not that big a deal. But it was still weirdly surprising just seeing how gung-ho she was in this shit. I was like, my God, I kind of thought she was going to become the villain.
The villain of the movie. That would have been interesting.
Which, I guess neither of these movies really have true villains, per se. Okay, well, The Hustler kind of does in the end because of Bert.
Gordon, but
yeah.
I
guess
seems
more
that overall,
like added than anything. Yeah,
it's like a Dumbo situation where the villain is just like an emotion or like a sin. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, like pride.
I guess so. That would make sense.
I don't know, pride and greed, but
it's just it's difficult kind of putting on any kind of moral in either of these movies, which I know like ultimately no movies don't have to have a moral or that sort of thing, but it was like, and this kind of goes into the point I said earlier, and I think this kind of adds to it. It was hard to really grasp everything that was going on in both movies. Because like they're so dead serious about everything that they were doing in both cases. Like in The Color of Money, they're a bit more, 80s witty with it, which God, that gets grating after a while of like that same like very almost Joss Whedon-esque kind of wit. But then again, The Hustler did that, but just with like straight laced, and it was got kind of hard to watch at certain points. But it's difficult, kind of really what they were saying, just like because they were so dead serious all the time that it was kind of hard to tell when things weren't being serious and what things were kind of jokes. And then also the fact of they really are just like using every single like pool or billiard or scam term in the book, and they're really just assuming the audience can follow along. And God, I had a hard time with it.
You gotta keep up on the lingo, the slang.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think that I was able to follow the plot line of The Hustler easier than Color of Money. And I really do think it's just because The Hustler had like 4 settings and The Color of Money was basically, you know, a trip across multiple states. So sometimes like I was Chicago kind of lost.
Yeah. I think I might be the opposite. I think for the exact same reason, because like The Hustler, it just, you know, we're just kind of in this like seemingly, you know, 4-room setting where all these people are all talking to each other and all apparently know all these goings on. And it just kind of being like very more subtle hushed conversations and everything. Like it's still really like the concept of like a stake horse and everything. Like once Bert, you know, like offered to put up money for Eddie, I was like, wait, what the fuck? Why is he doing all this shit? What the fuck's going on? But that was mostly just me not understanding just his character, I guess. Because there's a lot of moments where like some of the explanations, like I've gotten very used to modern movies over-explaining everything to death. And so now when it's a movie that just kind of assumes you'll know it, I unfortunately am not that good at it. But then in The Color of Money, it was pretty straightforward for me. It was, okay, they're a group of assholes who want to make money, and they're constantly going on about money. It's almost like it's the title of the movie. But they're doing this, and they're taking Tom Cruise dickface to get better at, you know, scamming people. And they're doing it in road trip style, so that's like, oh, different locales, and like, oh, it's kind of like training montage essentially, but with money and pool and like physical abuse.
Yeah. I think the what I mentioned earlier with the acting but not acting, I think that also played into my confusion a lot with Color of Money, because sometimes Paul Newman would react negatively to something Tom Cruise said or did, but wouldn't really explain himself. And that may play into what you were saying, you know, we're so used to movies over-explaining that, you know, we can't take something subtle and analyze it. But a lot of times I was like, well, now they're friends again? What was that, just internal strife based on his life? What happened there? What was going on?
Yeah, no, that in that case, like, I definitely do think that one definitely needed more explaining. Like, don't worry. Like, it just, like, it felt like they kind of, it felt like Vincent and Eddie broke up, like, 6 times.
Yeah. You do things your own way, and by God, do I love it. Like, wait, what?
Is that, but I thought you were training him to do it your way, because that's how he made you successful, and then when he actually does your ways, he's actually successful. What the fuck is going on?
And then 10 minutes later, he doesn't do what he says, and he gets pissed and goes to his car. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's like, now we're talking to this dude whose name's Seasons. He looks like an extra on that 70s show. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah. Both of these are hard to follow for different reasons. We'll just say. We'll have our preference, but overall, I think we can agree.
Yeah, not the easiest to follow of films. Still, like, but by God, they made me want to follow them in both cases.
Oh no, they definitely, they both held my interest. I enjoyed both of these. You know what?
Yeah.
Because I went right into the soundtrack, we actually kind of bypassed a conversation we usually have. And that is our experiences with these. So I want to ask, had you seen either of these prior?
I have not. I've seen, I think, bits and pieces of The Hustler, just like maybe floating around, because I know that's like basically one of the more famous movies of like that general era, and like, I know that's one of Newman's most famous ones.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were like a big Paul Newman I couldn't tell if you were a big Paul Newman fan, or if that was just because you are a big fan of Cool Hand Luke. I couldn't remember.
No, I'm definitely a fan of Paul Newman. I mean, I became a fan of Paul Newman because of, you know, Cool Hand Luke.
Right.
But no, I'm he's probably one of my favorite actors. So like, I think that might be one of the main reasons I enjoyed it as much. Like, I was able to follow it as much because I do find his acting very compelling. I find it much more compelling in the Hustler, I gotta say, because like there's kind of that weird realization of, oh man, his character's so shitty now. Like, what happened to him? And I kind of had to think about it for a second. It's like, actually, no, his character is the same character, but it's just like over time, and you realize, oh, this guy has been this kind of sort of shitty guy for decades now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, it's the problem that Marvel ended up having with Iron Man with Tony Stark. After one movie of snarky asshole, it's like, okay, he's had his growth. After like 7 movies of it, it's like, God, he keeps just being an asshole at this point. It's like there's growth, and then there's this guy is just kind of a dick.
I don't much care for this Iron Man they keep pushing.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think he's the highlight of both movies, with the possible exception of, damn it, I just lost his name. We must not allow
George C. Scott.
George C. Scott. Yeah. I wanted to find some way of working in a Doctor Strangelove joke, but I don't know if it's going to be easy or possible. So, but yeah, and I definitely think just as that kind of, not really foil, but just kind of like that just purely negative force to Paul Newman's more like kind of mixed character. I definitely think he brings a lot to the table. And then Jackie Gleason as the inverse of that, as just that purely like in it for the sake of it kind of deal. So not necessarily a positive force, but definitely an opposite to, Burt Gordon's character.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to say, because it is like, wow, between George C. Scott, Piper Laurie, Jackie Gleason, and Paul Newman. Like, in The Hustler, like a real tour de force sort of all over the place. Like, man, I can't pick one actor who really held my attention the whole time, because obviously Paul Newman's there for the whole movie. It's sort of his movie. But every now and then there's a scene where it's like, they're stealing the scene right now. This is all about them. They're trying to hijack the movie. Someone stop them. But it's a good thing. Yeah.
It's rare that you see a movie with a bunch of like big listers and it still all works out. Like, they are still each stealing each of their individual scenes, but they're doing it in such a way that really like lends itself to the story. Like, it really just kind of shows like all these people that Paul Newman is kind of being torn between.
Right.
And I guess that's kind of the whole deal of it, is himself being kind of torn apart by it.
Yeah. Whereas in The Color of Money, I wish that there's some characters that I wish we got more of that we just didn't. Like, Forrest Whitaker's character thankfully had a decent scene near the end of the movie that really showed his character, but still I was like, I want more of him. And even John Turturro, who more often than not is playing an asshole, I'm like, I want to see what his character's up to. And again, we sort of get a little bit of closure at the end tournament. Not a whole lot, but at least he's there. Because I thought he was just gone.
I want to see him polishing a cue ball with like a rag, like he's doing in Big Lebowski.
Yeah, running back and forth.
Yeah, but it's like really small, so it's kind of silly looking.
That's what I was worried, because you mentioned the Transformers that he was in, and I was like, oh, he's been in a lot of.
He's been in a lot of good stuff. That was me. I was being
Barton Fink.
I was being reductive. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's a fantastic actor. This is a tangent, just like as a sidebar. I distinctly hate The Big Lebowski. I've never seen the appeal for it. He is the saving grace of it, though, for me. Just Jesus's character altogether. Like, otherwise, I abhor that fucking movie.
I think it's all right, but I think it's the dude broiest of the Coen brother movies.
Oh yeah, I mean it practically defined dude bro.
Yeah, it has been co-opted by many a person.
Yeah, but anyway, going back to the point at hand.
That's all right. We'll have Coen cast later in the year.
Yes.
Oh shit! But will.
But it really was just kind of disappointing that the core characters we got with Color of Money were just, they weren't flat, but like they definitely felt very one note by the end, with the sort of exception of Newman's character.
Mm-hmm.
But come to the end, like it didn't feel like Vincent had really learned anything. It kind of seemed like he just like is now co-opted into this world by, Eddie, which like I guess is kind of the point. I guess that's sort of an arc, or it's just kind of like showing like, oh, where Vincent will go when given all these resources, and then Newman kind of realizing, oh, there's more to learn than this.
Yeah,
But
I think that's definitely the point, because that's the whole thing where Newman's character is like, you don't need me anymore, and then he goes through all the things, corrective lenses and whatever, and then at the tournament, or around the time of the tournament, he sees the two of them again, and they're doing a successful hustle all on their own. And it's like, oh yeah, he's fully in this world now. He didn't need you anymore. So
yeah, but it's just like, but at the same time, it just kind of makes you beg the question of like, what was the point of all this? Like, what at least with the Hustler, it kind of seems like in the end, like with the Hustler, with the kind of, I don't want to say affair he was having with, Piper's character, Piper Laurie's character, but that culmination of just him kind of realizing his own shit and kind of having that kind of apotheosis and allowing himself to kind of not necessarily break free of himself, but kind of, work beyond despite himself.
Right, yes.
And being able to like, just not be a complete douchebag. Still very much, the gambling douchebag, but wasn't like, suicidal about it, at least.
Yeah.
But like with The Color of Money, I guess the point of it was meant to be kind of the further development for Eddie as a person, but like he did it at the cost of like bringing another asshole into that world with Vincent, and then possibly even more so worse with Carmen, which like I was fully expecting like some sort of weird breakup thing to happen with those two by the end, but like really they just ended up becoming like the villain pair characters for like an early 2000s like Air Bud movie or something. Like you kind of see that, like the kind of like
the
power couple,
power
the dude,
couple, yeah.
Yeah, like the dude is kind of like very gung ho and like follows his dick into battle, versus the girl is the kind of conniving one in the background, actually running things.
You think she's your friend for a little while, and she's just like, oh, just ignore him. He's just in the game.
Yeah,
and I can see that movie. I'm picturing it in my head. It's snow buddies. They're at a ski resort. It's a skiing contest. I don't know.
or Air Bud, but he's playing pool.
Yeah, pool. Yeah,
Pool Bud. Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
With this discussion of characters, this is just a small little exercise for you, and maybe we won't really go anywhere with it. But I was curious, because when I was reading about The Color of Money, sort of before this, I saw that according to Scorsese, originally the script called for Jackie Gleason to reprise his role as Minnesota Fats in the movie, and that he showed it to Gleason, and Gleason turned it down because he felt that Fats was shoehorned into the story and didn't really belong there. Like, he could tell it was a cameo, and he's like, this doesn't have any real meaning to the story. Where do you think that might have fit in? I was thinking maybe at the pool championship near the end, but I'm not sure.
The most I can imagine was maybe he would have been like the judge at the pool tournament. Like that's about it. Because like with how it's established in like The Hustler, this dude's clearly like all kinds of loaded with what he's doing, and that he's just so good at it. I feel like at a certain point he might like reach a point, if not professionalism, of like a point where like the pool community in general just kind of lauds over him, and he might just be like, I can't really do this anymore because like no one will willingly play me, and so he kind of becomes more an advisory type.
Right.
He'd probably be invited on as like a guest, thing, but that's the most I could imagine. I couldn't imagine him like actually like being an opponent or that sort of thing. It's because it's very much meant to establish like, oh, this whole deal has gone modern, like 9-ball versus like straight pool. And so it just wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to kind of have any kind of more direct reprisal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't think
And
that he would be like an opponent necessarily or anything,
Yeah.
because that's the whole point of the end of the Hustler. You know, he's like, well, you beat me. I give up. I can't beat you tonight. So it's like,
Yeah.
if you've seen the Hustler, which I mentioned to my parents, I was doing this one beforehand because I was at their house for a wedding a couple weeks ago. And they had both watched The Color of Money, but they didn't even know it was they had not seen The Hustler, nor did they know it was a sequel. So you can really watch it independent of that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is good of it. But anyways, that tangent aside, if you had seen The Hustler, you'd know, oh, he's showing up as an opponent. Well, is there really any tension here? Like, we've already seen them play so many times, and that was the whole ending of The Hustler, is Newman beats Gleason. So
yeah,
but I didn't know, maybe he'd be like announcer. They'd see him before the tournament or something. But I guest judge, definitely I could have seen that.
Yeah, like, and I kind of figured they kind of did all they needed to do with cameos. When they did like the fake out where he goes to like the old pool hall at the beginning, but it turns out just to be furniture storage at this point.
Oh yeah,
which I thought was like, oh, okay,
that's something.
Which, like, I realized looking back on that scene's completely pointless, effectively.
It is.
It's like, you literally could completely cut it out and it would have meant zero things. Like, I don't know. But I thought it was funny, I guess. Yeah. I feel like, I'm glad that they didn't have Jackie Gleason in it, because I feel like they would have gone too far into they would have had the, most recent Ghostbusters problem of constantly calling back on itself, and it's just like it's not really kind of doing anything. It's just being like, oh, this existed,
right?
It's probably better in most ways, but it existed.
I think the good thing for them is that probably the majority of them would be the majority of the people from the Hustler are probably gone. So it's like, well, we can't really pull them in, I guess.
Yeah.
Except for Gleason at the time.
Right.
Well, I guess Piper Laurie was still around. I don't know if she's gone now, but she was around at the time. So.
Well, she also couldn't have made a cameo.
Well, she could have been a ghost. Or a dream sequence. I don't know.
You're right. Like, I was thinking about that for a second. I was like, oh, well, hang on. It's like, oh god, that's dark. God, yeah. Fucking God. Like, I really am realizing. Like, I kept thinking about, like, The Color of Money. It's like, God, this movie can be really brutal at times. Christ, The Hustler was dark.
Yes.
I did not expect that at all. Like, I don't know why I still, like, assume going into older movies, like, oh, they'll be, like, a lot more tame and that sort of thing. It's like, even Cool Hand Luke, it does not shy away from shit. It's got a lot of sexual moments. It's got a lot of moments where it's people getting killed and hurt and brutally beaten and shit. It's like, yeah, this is gonna happen.
I was gonna say we've had similar conversations recently on for the original Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and for the original Postman Always Rings Twice. For like, holy shit, I didn't expect the movie to be that dark.
Yeah, which I realize a lot of these movies, I guess, are a bit more off the beaten path, I guess, for that era of films. But this it's freaking Paul Newman. Like, it's a well-known one.
I was gonna say, I think The Hustler is the most well-known of those three that I mentioned.
I mean, easily.
Yeah,
like, what did you think about the level of? I don't even necessarily want to say violence specifically, because, like, a lot of shit happens in Hustler.
Well, it was great. I mean, first of all, not even the suicide, but, like, the writing on the mirror itself, like, took me by surprise. I was like, oh, wow, this is, like... It was weird, because going up to that point, her character... They portray her as being sort of off-kilter, but I didn't really register it as a character trait. I just registered it as... this is an interesting choice for Piper Laurie in portraying this individual, But then she starts having dialogue where she's, like, regretting hooking up with Newman and, like, I should have known, I made you up, I made this up, and, like, then I started thinking back to, like, the beginning of the film when he meets her. She's like, oh, I lie sometimes. What's your name? Like, things like that where I'm like, oh, this character is, like, not just the suit. This character is just troubled before she even meets Newman, and he makes it worse. So,
which I gotta say again, these characters are really interesting. Like, you don't normally get a lot of movies where you come in with characters that already have a lot of background character development that we don't even get to see. And sometimes it doesn't work super well, but in this movie, I think it did kind of perfectly, because it really was just showing all these characters at various points in their own personal arcs and how they just react against each other. It's pretty much just like, hey, what if we take all these individually either troubled or at least very much not mundane characters and see how they like spark. And I thought it worked really well, because I wouldn't have been like, modern movies, like, you know, if you ever hear a thing like, oh, you know, 90% of their dialogue was improv or that sort of thing, like, that happens fairly often nowadays. I would not have been surprised if they said that a lot of the stuff in, you know, Hustler had been at least partially improvised, because I think these guys were just genuinely good actors.
Yeah, no, I got you. But like, yeah, to keep going off of that, another thing, they like break his thumbs.
Yeah.
At one point, they is very vague for people who have not watched this movie. A couple of individuals that Paul Newman sort of, you know, hustles at a local pool hall.
Yeah.
Around the midpoint of the movie, and that also leads to one of the bigger fights that he and Piper Laurie's character have. But anyways, they break his thumbs, and when he comes into the room, he mentions it to her, and he holds up his hand, and I don't know if it was like a prosthetic or a trick of the camera or what, but his thumb looked mangled. Like, I was like, holy shit! Like, I believed it.
Yeah. Like, you think he just kind of like hold it like off, like under his arms or something, just kind of in the implied thing. It was like, nope, no, that looks mangled. Jesus.
Yeah. I was like, oh, geez. And I don't know if you've seen it, but that scene was very reminiscent of the Pope of Greenwich Village, where
I have not seen that one.
Around the midpoint of the movie, or maybe it's more later in the movie near the ending, Eric Roberts comes into a room to see his brother, I guess, and he just had a run-in with some mobsters, and he's like, Charlie, they took my thumbs, they took my thumbs, and his hands are all wrapped up. And it's a very similar scene. I wonder if that was slight allusion to The Hustler, because it was very similar, but that's all I could think about. But yeah, they nailed that regardless.
Yeah, man, like, they don't pull punches in that one. Like, I honestly, going into this, expected Color of Money to be pretty much what it was, you know, rated R movie, mid-80s, conventionally attractive female character, gonna be a lot of TNA. But I guess I kind of also expected there would be more violence than there ended up being. But, like, I guess, and like, there's like obviously sexual like implications and everything in the Hustler, but more the frontal nudity was on Newman's part.
Yeah.
Which, like, you know, not necessarily a bad thing. But like, the fact that it just went full on with the violence and everything, I was like, okay, I'm in for the ride for this one. I just didn't expect, which I guess I should have expected it when it's like, it's about scamming people. And it's about a very, you know, real and kind of dark kind of like goings on with like this, like that form of like sports, like, for lack of a better term, sports gambling. That just kind of happens in dive bars and shit. It's like this shit happens. People die over this.
No,
it felt like a real, not necessarily a real portrayal of the situation, but it gave a very realistic implication towards it, rather than like, you know, he's just getting away with scams and all this sort of things like in American Gods or something. But he's like, no, he's getting the crap kicked out of him.
You know what? That's actually a really good way to put it. I hadn't thought about, but The Hustler, I feel it, even though it's harder to follow because of the slang and everything that it throws in there, the terms that it expects you to know. I think that also lends to the realness, and it just feels like a realer portrayal, like it's being more true and The Color of Money, I'm using this word loosely, obviously, but it feels more fantastical just because of the journey behind it, I guess.
Yeah, it is very 80s movie of, it's basically the Karate Kid, like
Yeah.
if you get right down to it.
Road trip.
Except
Yeah.
except Mr. Miyagi ends up being the one to like do the swan kick at the end.
Yeah. He yeah.
Which that's a deep cut when you get right down to it, but whatever.
What, the Karate Kid?
I guess like comparing that to The Color of Money.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. Like of all the things.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I get what you mean, like the kind of more fantastical level of it. And plus just like it's difficult to have anything taken seriously when Tom Cruise is on screen. I'm just saying.
I know you mocked it I know you already mocked it near the opening due to the Oprah allusions that were made, but like that jumping on the bed thing especially seemed very...
I know.
It sort of came out of nowhere too, because like we had seen him laughing and having a good time and whatever, but that was just like true Tom Cruise crazy in the middle of the movie. I was like, where did...
Yep.
What?
It's like, what is going on?
Did he improvise that, or was that in the script? I really want to know.
I mean, there's a lot of moments where he just kind of loses it. It feels like at the one point when he like during the travel montage and like the game montage, like a couple of guys start taking swings at him and they all start booking it out of the bar, but he's like hooting and hollering like a monkey.
Yeah.
And a few other occasions where he just straight up howls, like actually acting like an animal. I'm like, at a certain point, it goes from being like, "Whoa, this dude's being quirky and crazy," to, "You all right, Tom?" Like, it's okay if you're not. Like, we're just concerned.
I almost feel like that might have been a more interesting arc for Newman's character if he like looked at those moments and how much enjoyment Tom Cruise was getting out of this, and he sort of sees a reflection of his younger self, and he's like, "Oh God, what am I doing?" Like,
I kind of feel like
maybe some of that was supposed to be in there, but I didn't really get it, especially with the ending.
I think like there's that moment where Cruise's character is going up against like the big shot, the Seasons guy, and it's got Newman just staring it down with like the montage of the pool shots going on over the screen. I think that's meant to be that moment. At least more directly. I think that the rest of it, it's that situation of, I think it was maybe being a bit too subtle about it. I think he was starting to kind of realize the kind of, not necessarily wrongs of what he was like, but, realizing that, hey, maybe who I was back then wasn't the best, and maybe, like, I have to find a new way to love this game rather than going back to who I was. Because I think even in the end when it says I'm back, I think that's kind of in a partially joking tone. So like I think that's meant to just kind of be, like I said, that kind of apotheosis moment. But I don't know. Like
okay.
I feel like I'm implying more implied character growth than this movie should really be given credit for.
I mean even if that's the case, I much prefer that sort of interpretation on it because, like I said, I think that would be more interesting. The only wrinkle being that in that case, he doesn't really... he sort of drops Tom Cruise's character if that's the path he takes, because he's like, well, I got to find a way that I can enjoy this game again, go my own way, because I don't want to be that person that I was. But fuck, I already ruined Vince, so he's screwed. I messed him. He may have already been on that path, but I definitely accelerated it and exacerbated it, but whatever.
Right. So.
Oh.
Who knows? It's hard to really say if there was any real character growth throughout either of these movies, but I think there was a lot of character moments, so I think that counts for something.
Oh, definitely. No, that's worth a lot, I think.
Which I feel like, again, even in both cases, that's kind of more true to life. It's like you're not going to have a grand, like coming to your senses moment. It's going to be just kind of like shit's going to happen, and you can either wallow in it or you can kind of work with it.
Mm-hmm. And usually,
which I
if you
guess
experience character growth, it's gradual over an extremely long time. It's not like one event. Obviously, events can change you, but it's not like
right.
this one event has affected my entire, like every single movie has. Almost every single movie has that. It's like, well, that's not always the case.
Right. Big Lebowski.
Ooh, characters grew in that movie.
I was saying more the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Well, where I was saying like, all movies have some level of character growth. It was like, well, the Big Lebowski certainly doesn't.
I see what you did. I see what you mean now.
One character becomes dust, if that so the opposite direction. But
Stuart, I think that was a bit too subtle. I think you should rewrite that speech you just gave.
Okay, the Big Lebowski sucks.
That's much better.
Cool.
Yeah, but stay tuned for our Coen Brothers miniseries where we just go through all the Coen Brothers films chronologically.
Which is not a terrible idea when you get down to it, but
that might be fun. Like,
honestly, it's like an aside
every now and then.
Yeah. Just like the Coen corner.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
I'll write that one down.
Yeah, let's think about that. Yeah, I'd be interested in actually doing something like that. Anyways,
yeah. Let's wrap these two shitty movies up so we can get on with that, huh?
Yeah, this piece up. Fuck. I want to go watch Miller's Crossing.
I'm gonna go watch Fargo for the billionth time. Not because I liked it, because I had to do an assignment on it.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh god.
Oh.
What movie were we talking about again?
So
yeah,
I think we finally. It's funny because near the beginning, I was like, oh man, how are we going to wrap this podcast up? Because we're sort of all over the place on both of these, but I'm pretty well on my consensus in that I'm not even going to go over all my points because I think it's fairly well laid out. I think The Hustler is just a better movie and I enjoyed it more. But you know what? And it's strange because I don't necessarily think it kept me engaged, but I don't think that I like The Color of Money overall as a movie. I just liked all the characters in it, which feels very strange to hear myself say.
Right.
I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm pretty much in the same boat. I definitely had a harder time grasping a lot of The Hustler, but I don't like a lot of it's like that's not necessarily the point. I genuinely just think like pretty much everyone on display was doing a fantastic job. Like 100%. It wasn't trying to do too much with what it had, which I guess was the point of the book that it was based on and everything. But it's just like once you bring that into the 80s and how there's so many tropes of the time that are pretty much unable to be kind of broken from. Which, coincidentally, actually, I should also say, apparently the original author wrote a screenplay for the movie version of Color of Money, but the directors and like screenwriters completely rejected it and did their own thing. Like, it was like, oh, damn, fucking do the man dirty, damn.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, like, I guess that kind of also maybe lends to, like, it's probably very different than what the book has, so it might be a lot more subtle throughout it, but it's difficult to kind of get that same seedy underbelly vibe that The Hustler was just really steeping itself in, and just being because like, and also like again, it kind of lends itself to the fact of that it's only in this one little area. It's really meant to just be like seeing this kind of like not necessarily like rotted area, but really just kind of seeing this person deal with this very, small cast of characters and locations on his kind of personal journey, and then just kind of having a road trip deal with The Color of Money. It's like it just feels kind of trite.
Yeah.
It's still good. I gotta say, I still loved watching it, and I still think there were a lot of moments that made it worth watching. I think Paul Newman as an actor is very different in his younger days versus his like older days, and so it's almost completely different styles of performance. So that alone is even just fun to watch. But yeah, just it's The Hustler's very good. It is a very good movie. It's very dark, but it is very much worth it.
Yeah, confusion or not, I think it's I think there's little to actually fully dislike about, you know, the Hustler. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of good character moments in The Color of Money, but I think some of the best scenes are just Paul Newman on his own. I think my favorite scene in that movie is the entire pool game between Paul Newman and Forrest Whitaker, and then the aftermath of that. So
Yeah.
you know,
It's just fantastic on display. It's like it's two insanely great actors just hanging out essentially.
yeah,
Obviously, Forrest Whitaker was very young at the time, but he'd get there.
I agree.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah.
Also, God, that would have been so cool as like a young actor just to have a scene with Paul Newman.
Oh my god, that would have been good.
I'd put that on my resume. Just like, I had a brief scene with Paul Newman.
Not even the movie, just the scene.
Just the scene, yeah.
What movie was that in? It's not important.
I don't know,
Probably didn't
man.
see
Like,
it. Some indie darling. Yeah.
Yeah. Some new guy, Tim something.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Tim Ship, I want to say. God, like I need to put a coin in a jar for that joke.
So I think it sounds like the Hustler takes it this time.
Yeah, pretty
Wins
firmly.
the pot.
Like, yeah, I get like again, it's not in no way to say The Color of Money is a bad film, but it's hard to kind of compete against it just with like just all the chops on display.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nope. And
look at us agreeing on one.
Wow, I think this is the first sequel episode we've had in a while, quite a while.
Yeah, but I was shocked when I learned about it. I was literally watching a video online about just like guys talking about like, oh, pool scenes in movies and like, is this stuff accurate? Was this a trick or was this like actually these actors had to train to do this? And then they brought that up. It's like, which is actually is like, and here's The Color of Money, which is actually a direct sequel to The Hustler. And I'm like, I'm sorry. and so I had that beautiful moment of I get to do a Paul Newman one, and I also get to do a crazy Tom Cruise one, all in one go. I'm down with it.
How beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm lost on what. Oh yes, do you have any suggestions? I was like, what do we do next?
Oh yeah. I mean, as far as like, maybe not necessarily in the same like genre, but just really even kind of tone. I mean, we mentioned it before for Tom Cruise movies. I mean, he has a lot of, I give Tom Cruise a lot of shit. I think he's a very good actor, especially a lot of his earlier stuff. So, Risky Business, Top Gun, which I've jokingly referred to as the movie that is the reason I exist, but, that's a story for another day. A Few Good Men. I love A Few Good Men. But as far as for stuff for like, that's a bit more direct with this for like sports dramas or whatever, I really don't know. It feels very specific. I mean, obviously Cool Hand Luke, if you want like more of that kind of dark Paul Newman type thing. Cool Hand Luke's a bit more hopeful. It's definitely kind of like, it's a bit more Shawshank Redemption, which is kind of the point because it's a prison movie. But beyond that, I really don't know. This is a very particular kind of film. Like, there's not a lot of pool films.
No, I get what you mean. Go check out those movies that Stu mentioned. And hey, Top Gun, we'll be able to do an episode with another direct sequel if that thing ever comes out. I think it's supposed to be the end of the year now.
I don't know. Time really with movie releases especially is just kind of fluid right now.
Yeah, for a number of reasons.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you got anything?
Oh yeah. It's funny because you mentioned Cool Hand Luke specifically for Paul Newman. Another good Paul Newman movie I've actually mentioned on the show before, The Sting. Go watch The Sting.
Oh yeah.
It's a great movie, and guess what? It also has to do with conning people through games. So
I realize more and more. I think Paul Newman might have just been a con man
that weaseled his way into Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, fucking that kind of heart of gold, soul of brass kind of thing.
Yeah. He did it. He did it right because he warmed all of our hearts.
And now sells delicious ranch dressing.
I imagine it's delicious. I have not had it, but I see his face.
Honestly. I see his face a lot in the aisle where I get my other pasta sauces.
Everywhere I go, I see his face, as they say.
He's always with us.
Besides that, an interesting one, Gleason, which is an ABC television movie that is sort of about Jackie Gleason and, his life and his early career. It's a biopic, so there's actors playing strangely enough, Brad Garrett plays Jackie Gleason, which I don't remember. I have to look up a photo. I guess he either put on weight or he donned a fat suit, but it's a very strange choice, and I'm wondering how that came about. It's you know what? It's probably because he was on Everybody Loves Raymond at the time, and it was hot. So that's probably that is probably why that happened.
Probably. It's rarely anything deep.
No.
If there's anything we've learned about Hollywood, the stories they tell can be as deep as the ocean. The stories behind making them are basically a kiddie pool.
Yeah. And
mostly it's just a pool for only people who know each other that can be invited.
Very, very in-knit. It's probably
I've
that simple.
I've described it as a bag of mating snakes for a while, so that's pretty much it.
You do say that a lot.
I mean, it's every time I see more stuff about it, it becomes more accurate. I'll stop saying it when it stops being accurate.
And one more I have, and that is for George C. Scott. It's funny because you sort of kept mentioning Doctor Strangelove, but obviously for me, the first thing that comes to mind when you say George C. Scott is Patton, and I can't not think of Patton.
I still haven't seen that. I need to.
The great speech that he gives to all the troops, obviously, "You magnificent bastards, I read your book." So many good lines delivered through a screaming George C. Scott. Yeah. So if you have the patience to sit through a 3-hour war movie, that's definitely one that you can watch.
A screaming George C. Scott should be the name of your autobiography. I don't know why. I just think that's a fantastic line.
It'll be somewhere in the book. Don't worry.
Cool.
Or alternatively, I guess if you want a different George C. Scott appearance, I'm pretty sure he voices the wisp of smoke that tempts the main character to do marijuana in Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. And that is all I have.
That is the most specific reference I have ever heard you make, dude. It's like I know you tried to just kind of go into the socials from there, but my God, I cannot ignore that one.
Okay, what do you want to talk about with it?
No, it's fine.
Specific?
I just had to put a pin on that one and just to kind of direct attention to the fact that was just something you just dropped out of nowhere. That you just knew with such conviction as if to say it is the most common knowledge on earth. And you were just here's this. And I just had to reevaluate my entire concept of reality with that one. I was like, holy, what?
Give me 10 seconds to look this up, because now I'm oh God, I'm pretty sure that was George C. Scott, but what if I'm wrong?
I mean, if it's not, that might honestly be better.
Oh, yes, I was right. It is. Okay, never mind.
Cool.
So I'll keep that in.
Yeah, that's fine. I could not let that one go without drawing some attention to it. I just genuinely could not allow myself to let that one fall by the wayside for no other reason than to just that's a thing. My God.
Yeah, if you want to see Alvin and the Chipmunks, Winnie the Pooh, the Baby Muppets, and Bugs Bunny tell a kid not to do drugs, that's cool. That's the special to watch.
Fun.
You know what else is fun? Social media, I've been told.
Yay! Speaking of segues,
you're not the only master of them.
I mean, I'm not master of them. What the hell are you talking
you're
about?
You're better than I am. You're usually the one that pulls them off, anyways.
Up to interpretation, but anyway.
So go ahead and review, favorite, leave reviews. I already said that part. And just generally listen
leave
to
offerings for.
light a sacramental candle.
If you fashion a bowl out of obsidian and fill it with acorns and shake it loud enough, I will eventually hear it.
But you can do all of those things for us on any podcast app of your choice. We're on, everything: Apple, Google Play, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbay, Downcast, iHeartRadio, you name it.
We are Legion.
We're probably there. But our host, of course, as always, is the wonderful Anchor.fm.
Thank you so much.
Great podcast host, and they make it really easy to make a podcast. I think that I'm giving them an ad every time I read this, but this is not an ad.
No, we're just very appreciative of them.
Yes, they
to allow us to get our nonsense onto the air.
They make it so much easier than some of the others I've used in the past. But anyways, yes, very appreciative of that. Go ahead and send us an email, theyremadeit@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions, comments, just want to talk, all those things are fine. And go ahead and follow us at It Remade on Twitter, They Remade It at Instagram, for podcast updates, show updates, possible future episodes, what we've been watching and playing, suggestions that we've given out during the show, and full circle diagrams that I've been putting together based on people that we have covered on the show.
Those are getting pretty wide at this point.
Yeah, it is. It never ceases.
We aim to be Christopher Lee levels of connected with all our shows.
Yeah, I don't think that we've breached 4. I think one time during Full Circle I named someone off who's been in 4 things we covered, but that's the farthest we've gotten. We've got to dig deeper.
Let's hit the lucky 7. Let's go.
Woo-hoo!
I'm sure if I hit more Disney ones, we'll hit it eventually.
Oh, probably. Lion King win, as they say.
Oh God. I'll leave that one when we have a moment where it's just like, you know what? It's been a long day. Let's gather around this barrel of fish with our rifles. God.
But that is it for socials.
Yes. Thank you as always for, appreciating our service. Service? We're not soldiers, Jesus Christ. Thanks for putting up with our bullshit. How's that?
Thank you for everything you do for this country with your tri-weekly podcast.
With your somehow both super mundane and also highly controversial opinions about these movies none of us have heard of.
Yes, I'm sure you all appreciate the sacrifice that's being made here.
Yes. The things we do for not money.
Yeah.
Attention?
The things I do for love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll do that. God, if only there were a Courage movie. And then subsequently a remake of that movie.
Oh, we got that Scooby-Doo Courage coming out to look forward to.
Oh, yeah. I want to watch Scooby-Doo. Well, I know what I'm doing tonight after, crap, what did you say at the beginning? Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, after watching Pan's Labyrinth. Yeah,
yes. Yes. God, I am very tired.
It doesn't sound like
I don't know how much. I don't know how much I will watch.
Oh, and I gotta read subtitles. What the hell?
Oh man, it's in Spanish. No hablo.
Isn't there some sort of poorly conceived dub that I can just watch instead?
I'm sure there is. I want to do a dub of that movie.
You want to do the dub? Sure.
Yes. Someday I want to do a bad dub.
Sure, why not?
Cool. I have a goal. I think it about wraps us in a bow, though.
Yes, I believe so.
So, I suppose, as always, me amo Stuart. Your host.
Yeah, and I'm Jacob.
That's the dub.
Yeah. You didn't see it, but my mouth moved a crazy amount of times for what I just said.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, it's only like half accurate to what he even said in the first place.
Yeah, we took some liberties in that.
Yeah. There was some vulgarity that we decided, let's not show that one.
Yeah. No, this is some Ghost Stories level messing with the script, I think.
some Ghost in the Shell level messing with the script.
Oh, jeez. Well, we had to have one, folks.
Yep.
I'm glad you stuck it to the end. And if you made it this far, the secret word is rhubarb. That's
Departed.
Rhubarb.
Ha! I got it in.
Yes.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Great. Geez, that old fat man. Look at the way he moves, like a dancer.
Well, cross-eyed.
And those fingers, them chubby fingers. That stroke. He's like he's playing a violin or something.